Coming up next, Book and It reads The Nightingale and the Rose. Everybody, and welcome back to Booking It Summer Short Story Edition 4. And here I am, your humble and eloquent host, Cooper Cobbs. Today I'm joined by none other than myself, me, and I. So today, it's another Cooper solo episode. But I think people like my solo episodes. I think they do. So if you like my solo episodes, do whatever, like it, say so. Give us a 5-star review, all that good stuff. Anyway. Today, talking about short story The Nightingale and the Rose by one Mr. Oscar Wilde. And just a little bit about Oscar Wilde. He was born in 1854, died in 1900, living a grand total of 46 years. So many of these author people back in the day didn't live very long. I have an entire short story book from last year, and the person who lived the longest was literally 70 years. And that was the longest by a long shot. I mean, everybody else was 40 or 50 and when they died. I'm like, come on, really? Anyway, so Oscar Wilde, he was actually born in Dublin, but he's an English writer. And basically, his short stories became really, really famous, and everybody loved them. And they are eventually called masterpieces. So we shall see. We shall dub it masterpiece or not. Guilty or not guilty of being a masterpiece at the end of the episode. But anyway, famous writer. You might have read another short story by him, a more famous one called The Selfish Giant, about the giant who wouldn't let any kids into his garden. In the end, he let the kids into this garden, and it's a really good story. Really good story. Apparently, it's a allegory for redemption in Christianity, which is awesome. Anyway, I guess I'll give the premise of The Nightingale and the Rose. So basically, the premise is the nightingale is singing in her garden, okay, and the garden is basically at a school, and then there's a boy in his dorm room in the school who's saying, "Oh, this little lady, she will fall in love with me if I give her but one rose." And the nightingale's like, "Oh my, I must give this poor little man a rose." And so she flies around to little rose bushes in the garden, and two of them say, "I'm yellow, I'm white, I need a red rose." The nightingale says. And so she flies to the red rose bush tree thing, and he says basically that he won't produce any roses this year because the frost has nipped his buds and has come into his veins. And so the nightingale's like, "But is there any other way?" And so basically the nightingale has to sing all night with the thorn piercing her heart, and then the rose will grow, which is a pretty fun conceit. I do say so myself. Anyway, so the rose sings all night, and she dies, and the rose is there in the morning. The student picks it up, takes it over to the girl he wants to ask out, and the girl basically slaps him in the face. I doesn't do that, but says, "Oh, this guy gave me jewels. Oh, this guy's already said something to me." And so he ends up not having to, he ends up throwing the rose out the window and it runs over. And then he's reading a philosophy book after that. So basically, Nightingale's sacrifice was worthless. And so kind of the point of the story is, was the sacrifice worth it? Was it not? Who's in the right here, the student or the nightingale? Because the nightingale said things like literally, "Love is better than life." And then the student was all about practicality, like mathematics and philosophy, and even that's not really practical. But anyway, he was all about that kind of stuff and not really about the love, even though he got into, this one girl for some reason. Anyway, so my baggage was story. Like I said, we read a bunch of these stories last year for school, and basically it was a universally hated short story in class, and we all hated the ending. We were like, why the heck did this guy make the nightingale die on the end? That's so stupid, right? Because everybody wants an author to fit in certain tropes. If it's fantasy, they want the good guys to win in epic fashion at the end, even though it seems like the darkness comes crushing in about to beat them. Anyway, everybody loves that stuff. But Oscar Wilde here says, "I'm actually going to subvert that. I'm not going to give you that," which now is really interesting. And now I can appreciate, I think, the point of the story more, the point that's being posed, the whole issue. I don't think I could quite do that last time I read it, but I think it's actually really fun now. I think it's a really fun story. It's really well written. Here, let me read you. Actually, that later. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the kind of main question posed in this story. So it's like love versus the sciences or practicality. So like I said earlier, the Nightingale literally said, love is better than life. And so the whole question posed is, does the Nightingale make the right decision in sacrificing herself? And I mean, it's a tough question. I wish the guys here were here to discuss it because it'd be really fun to discuss. But basically, I don't think it was quite worth it for the Nightingale to sacrifice herself like that. For one, as a student, so it's probably, young love. I mean, the way the characters are described are almost childish in this short story. So basically, it's like this love, even if they went to the ball, which the rose was supposed to help them do, it probably wouldn't last. So, and then the Nightingale just hears this conversation and just thinks she knows what this boy is all about, and then it ends up dying just to give this selfish boy worthless rose that he's going to throw out the window in 5 seconds. Also, love is not the best thing in life, and I don't know if Oscar Wilde, was a Christian or not, but love is not so many stories are like, oh, love is the greatest thing, and sure, love's great, whatever. I love love, but, basically, there are, sometimes you don't need to foolishly sacrifice yourself for young love, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, there are times to sacrifice yourself for love. Like the Bible literally says in John 15:13, greater love is no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. I think that's awesome. But in this case, it's a stupid sacrifice. There. That's my thought. So, does the story, basically, it kind of poses this question. It's like, I'm saying that a lot, but the story poses, is the student in the right, or is the Nightingale in the right? And because at the very end, this is the very end of the story. Quote, what a silly thing love is, said the student as he walked away. It is not half as useful as logic, for it does not prove anything. And it is always telling one of the things that are not going to happen and making one believe things that are not true. In fact, it is quite unpractical. And this is the age to be practical is everything. I shall go back to philosophy and study metaphysics. So he returned to his room and pulled out a great, dusty book and began to read, end quote. So that's how the story ends. So it kind of seems like the author is saying, yeah, the student's in the right here. It's not practical. Love is stupid, but I think it's a red herring there. I think that Mr. Oscar Wilde does not believe the student, even though the story says that he does, which is really interesting. So, basically, do I believe the student was right, or do I believe the Nightingale was right? I think they're both foolishly wrong. Bruh. I think I'm going to put more of the blame on the Nightingale, though, because this dude, wasn't going to, I don't know, the Nightingale heard a snippet of a ranting, basically, and decided to kill herself for it. But this guy is stupid, too. Look, I think love is more valuable than these metaphysics books and all that kind of crap. So, this is a weird episode, guys. This is a really weird episode. So it says that basically love is false sometimes. And basically, well, I don't think that's love. I think this guy got caught up in the heat of the moment and didn't have any love for it. So, anyway. By the way, I was talking about it was beautifully written. I want to read this one line to you. This is when the Nightingale is singing all night, all right? Quote, then she gave one last burst of music. The white moon heard it, and she forgot the dawn and lingered on in the sky. The red rose heard it, and trembled all over with ecstasy, and opened its petals to the cold morning air. Echo bore it to her purple cavern in the hills, and woke the sleeping shepherds from their dreams. It floated through the reeds of the river, and they carried its message to the sea. That is a beautifully written paragraph. I don't care what you say. That's awesome writing. That's awesome writing. I could only hope to write something like that. That's awesome. Anyway, summary. Nightingale, completely stupid. The student, completely stupid. This story, not completely stupid. Is it a masterpiece? I'm going to give it the masterpiece. All right. Anyway, sorry that was kind of a weird episode. Cooper ranting. But next week, we'll be back. Another edition of Summer Short Stories. We got 2 more. This one is going to be The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, written by none other than one Mr. F. Scott Fitzgerald, author of The Great Gatsby. So anyway, we'll be back with that. And then also, gotta do some donor shout outs. So today, just gonna shout them out straight. I lost all my creativity when Isaiah's not here to help me. Like, Isaiah literally cut out 5 minutes of what you heard last week from donor shout outs. It was insane. But I'm not feeling it today. I'm just gonna shout them out. So we have Nana, Femtapiamuela, Mike and Sylvia, Mr. Mike and Miss Laura, Uncle Sebi, Aunt Jenny and Uncle Sam, Moses, Zara, Chris, Anna, Emily. Well, if you want to support us and be part of normally great donor shoutouts, go to patreon.com/Bookend. Link in the description below. Also, we are having a half centennial celebration of our 50th episode. If you want to submit a question for that, either comment on a YouTube video or I'm going to post our email down below. So send us an email. Let us know if you're a patron. Just send us a message through Patreon. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions. It's going to be really, really awesome. Anyway, I have to do it myself. I hate doing this. Until next time, keep on booking it.